Welcome to Classic Storytime Hub. Today, we bring you a thrilling English reinterpretation of the dark, Gothic masterpiece, The Telltale Heart, by the genius Edgar Allan Poe. Can a truly guilty heart ever be buried forever? Tune in now to hear how the sound of a silent conscience drives a self-proclaimed sane killer mad.
Yes, nervous, dreadfully nervous I have always been, but madness? No, do not call me mad. My illness sharpened my senses, it did not destroy them. Above all, my hearing grew unnaturally keen. I heard whispers from heaven, echoes from earth, and even dreadful murmurs from hell itself. Tell me, with such clarity of perception, how could I be insane? Listen closely, and you will see how calmly, how rationally I can recount the tale. I cannot say when the thought first crept into my mind, but once it did, it clung to me like a shadow. It haunted me day and night. There was no reason, no insult, no greed. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me, nor did I covet his wealth. No, it was his eye, that pale, clouded eye, like the gaze of a vulture, pierced me to the core. Whenever it fixed upon me, my blood froze. Slowly, inevitably, I resolved to rid myself of it forever. You think me mad? Madmen act without reason, but I was cunning, deliberate. For a whole week before the deed, I was kinder to the old man than ever before. And each night, at the stroke of midnight, I crept to his chamber door. I lifted the latch ever so gently, inch by inch, until I could slip my head inside. In my hand, a lantern, shut tight so no light escaped. Oh, you would have laughed to see how carefully I moved. It took me an hour to slide my head far enough to glimpse him on his bed. Would a madman show such patience? Then, when I was inside, I opened the lantern, just enough, just a crack, so that a single thin ray fell upon that dreadful eye. Night after night I tried, 7 nights in all, but each time the eye was closed, and I could not act. It was not the old man himself who tormented me, but that cursed watchful eye. And each morning, when daylight came, I greeted him warmly, calling his name with cheer, asking how he had slept. He never suspected that at midnight I stood over him, watching, waiting, plotting in silence. On the 8th night, I moved with a caution beyond anything I had ever known. The ticking of a watch seemed swift compared to the slow, deliberate pace of my hand upon the door. Never before had I felt such mastery, such triumph. Imagine me there, inch by inch, sliding the door open, while the old man lay unaware of the secret thoughts that consumed me. The thrill of it made me chuckle softly, and perhaps he heard, for he stirred suddenly upon his bed. Yet I did not retreat. The room was drowned in pitch-black darkness, the shutters sealed tight against thieves, and I knew he could not see me as I pressed forward, steady and relentless.
My head slipped inside, and I prepared to release the lantern's light, when my thumb betrayed me, scraping against the metal clasp. The sound was enough. The old man sprang upright, crying out into the void, "Who's there?" I froze. I did not breathe, did not move. For an hour I remained motionless, while he sat upright, listening, straining against the silence.
He was alert, just as I had been so many nights, listening to the faint ticking of death within the walls. Then came a sound, a low, muffled groan. Not pain, not sorrow, but the dreadful murmur of a soul drowning in terror. I knew it well. Many nights, at the stroke of midnight, I had heard that same sound rise from my own chest, echoing in the stillness, feeding my fears. I pitied him, yes, but inside I laughed. His dread had begun with the faintest noise, and since then it had grown, swelling until it consumed him. He tried to soothe himself, telling his mind it was only the wind, or a mouse, or a cricket's chirp, but all in vain. Death had already entered the room, casting its shadow before him, wrapping him in its invisible cloak. Though he could neither see nor hear it, he felt it, the presence of my head waiting in the darkness. On the 8th night, I moved with a patience so unnatural that even the ticking of a watch seemed swift beside me. Each inch of progress filled me with triumph. There I was, sliding the door open, little by little, while the old man dreamed not of the shadow creeping toward him. The thrill of it made me laugh under my breath, and perhaps he heard, for he stirred suddenly upon his bed. Yet I did not retreat. The room was drowned in pitch-black darkness, the shutters locked tight against thieves, and I pressed forward, steady, relentless. I waited, motionless, for what felt like eternity. Still he did not lie down. At last I resolved to open the lantern, just a sliver, no more. Slowly, stealthily, I let a single thread of light escape, thin as a spider's silk, and it fell upon the eye. That dreadful eye, wide open, staring, pale and veiled in its ghastly film. The sight froze my very blood, yet filled me with rage. I saw nothing of the old man's face, only that cursed eye glowing in the darkness. And then, as if to mock me, another sound reached my sharpened ears. A faint, muffled throb, like the ticking of a watch wrapped in cloth. I knew it well. It was the beating of his heart. Each pulse struck me like a drum, driving me to fury, urging me onward. Still I held my breath, the lantern steady, the ray fixed upon the eye. But the sound grew, quicker, louder, pounding through the silence of the house. His terror must have been unbearable, for the heart thundered as though it would burst.
Do you understand? I am nervous, yes, but not mad. And in that dreadful hour, the relentless pounding filled me with terror of my own. Louder, louder it grew. I feared the neighbors might hear. The moment had come. With a cry, I flung the lantern wide and leapt into the room. He shrieked once, only once. In an instant, I dragged him down and smothered him beneath the heavy bed. I smiled then, triumphant, for the deed was nearly done. Yet the heart still beat, muffled, stubborn, echoing in the silence. Minutes passed before it faltered, then ceased. I lifted the bed, touched the body, pressed my hand upon the chest. Nothing. No pulse. No life. He was stone dead. The eye, oh, that dreadful eye, would haunt me no more. If you still believe me mad, you will think so no longer when I tell you of the clever precautions I took to hide the body. The night was fading, yet I worked swiftly, silently. First, I dismembered the corpse, head, arms, legs, all separated. Then I lifted 3 planks from the chamber floor and concealed the remains beneath. I replaced the boards so neatly, so cunningly, that no eye, not even his, could have detected a single flaw. No stains, no trace of blood. I had been too careful for that. A tub had caught it all. By the time my work was finished, it was 4 o'clock, still as dark as midnight. As the bell tolled the hour, a knock sounded at the door. I descended with a light heart, for what had I to fear? 3 men entered, polite and composed, introducing themselves as officers of the law. A neighbor had reported a shriek in the night. Suspicion had been raised, and they had come to search the house. I welcomed them warmly. I explained the cry. It was my own from a dream. The old man, I said, was away in the country. I led them through the house, bade them search well. At last, I brought them into his chamber. I showed them his possessions, untouched, secure. In my triumph, I even invited them to sit, bringing chairs into the very room. Boldly, I placed my own seat upon the spot beneath which lay the hidden corpse. The officers were satisfied. My manner convinced them. I was at ease, answering cheerfully as they spoke of ordinary things. But soon I felt myself grow pale. I longed for them to leave. My head throbbed, and in my ears there came a faint ringing. Still they sat, still they chatted. The ringing grew sharper, more insistent. I spoke more freely, trying to drown it out. But it continued, clearer, louder, until at last I realized the sound was not within my ears.
No doubt I grew pale, though I spoke faster, louder, trying to drown the sound. But it rose, steady and relentless, a dull, muffled throb, like the ticking of a watch wrapped in cloth. My breath caught in my throat. The officers did not hear it, or so I thought. I spoke more quickly, more fiercely, yet the noise swelled. I leapt to my feet, arguing over trifles, waving my arms in wild gestures, but still the sound grew, louder, louder, louder. Why would they not leave? I strode across the floor, heavy steps echoing as though enraged by their idle chatter. Yet the sound pressed on, louder still. My mind reeled. I cursed, I raved, I dragged the chair across the boards, its scraping shriek filling the room. But the heartbeat rose above it all, pounding, 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 louder, louder, louder. And still the men smiled, speaking calmly, mocking me with their ease. Could they not hear? Almighty God, they heard, they knew. They were laughing at my torment. Their smiles were daggers, their silence unbearable. Anything was better than this agony, this cruel derision. I could endure no more. My chest burned, my throat tightened. I must scream or perish. And then, with a cry that tore through the night, I shrieked, "Villains, pretend no longer! I confess it all! Tear up the planks! Here, here! It is the beating of his hideous heart!"
And thus the story ended. If you liked this journey into the worlds of classic literature, do not forget to support us by subscribing so we can tell you more. And hey, if there's a classic tale you'd love to hear told in this suspenseful style, drop its name in the comments below. Your suggestion might be our next chilling adventure.